I have been noticing a lot of discussions been popping up about the dreaded term known as cultural appropriation. Now, what I've noticed for the most part in the past and even still to this day, that people are mishandling the usage of that word, and they're basically using it like a get out of jail free card whenever they see fit that it best suits their own personal narrative. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because of something that happened, I guess you could say, during this past week. And basically what happened was a new picture of Justin Bieber surfaced on the net, and it was basically him rocking dreadlocks. And as we all know, dreadlocks is a popular hair fashion that is worn by black people predominantly. A lot of black people especially, are crying out wolf about how it's cultural appropriation. He's taking the hairstyle, he's making it his own, and white people are getting the credit for it, and black people are being demonized for it. And I've been saying this ever since I started talking about this, and I'm still going to stick to the same narrative because it's a fact that you cannot blame one person for cultural appropriation, okay? Cultural appropriation is a term that is used heavily and predominantly by the media to allocate black attributes or attributes of other minorities and attribute them to white people and glorify them in that sense. So you cannot blame Iggy Azalea if people are giving her, or if the media is giving her praise for a big booty or something like that, or if the media is giving praise Kim Kardashian for big lips. You don't blame Kardashian for that. You blame the general media. And so the fact that Bieber is getting the blame for cultural appropriating couldn't be further from the truth. I think it's not fair on him. Yes, he does a lot of stupid things, but him as a white guy rocking dreadlocks shouldn't be something that he should be demonized for by the black community. I don't think it's fair. Let's put things into perspective for a second. If we're gonna judge white people for rocking dreadlocks, a predominantly black hairstyle, then we should kind of get at black people who rock weave, because first and foremost, weave is not a black thing. Weave is something that has been used to mimic other hairstyles of other cultures. For example, like long stringy hair does not belong to black people. That's something that's more indicative of white people. That's more something indicative of Asian people. And that's another thing too. A lot of black women in particular who get their weave done, it's done with Asian hair, whether it's Southeast Asian, whether it's North Asian, whatever the case may be, it's usually done with Asian hair. So with that being said, or with that precipice in mind, should we now condemn black women for cultural appropriating other cultures with usage of hair? Of course we should under that logic, but we shouldn't even be doing that to begin with in the first place. If anything, we should be more defining the differences between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. I'm going to get to that later. Continuing on with the double standards, what have you. What I've been hearing this past week especially, as far as weave and what have you is concerned, people do demonize others for cultural appropriation, but then they don't demonize themselves if they themselves are guilty of it. I brought up black women and how they use weave and put blonde in their weave and what have you, and that's mostly indicative of white people because of the fact that it's white people that you normally see with blonde hair and blue eyes, whereas you see some black women who have the blonde weave with the blue context to try and mimic that. But then there are going to be some black people out there, and I've been hearing this for the longest time, especially this past week, that there is a tribe that is indigenous to Australia that have the traits of dark skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes, which are all natural. That's all well and good, but are you a descendant of that tribe? No? If you aren't, then you cannot use that as a scapegoat. That's not fair. That's like me saying, oh, well, because, my cousin from this generation, from the 15th century, used to rock his hair like this, that means I'm allowed to do that as well. No, because at the end of the day, the blood has been so diluted down to the point where you're going to find very little lineage at all to begin with. And if you have no lineage at all to that tribe, to that aforementioned tribe that was in Australia, then you cannot claim that. You cannot use that as your own. That is what I believe, that a lot of people will use cultural appropriation to benefit their own narrative so that they can do what they see fit. So if they want to walk around with a blonde weave, for example, then they're going to use that as a trump card, therefore giving them more credence to do so. But that's not right, because at the end of the day, you can't use that same logic to pardon yourself and to condemn someone else at the same time. It's very contradictory of you to do so. So that's why I have an issue with cultural appropriation in terms of the way people use that term. Now, I'm going to show you the correct way of how to use that term. Remember last year when that woman by the name of Rachel Dolezal was a white woman masquerading as a black woman so that she could participate in different black movements like Black Lives Matter and NAACP? That right there is cultural appropriation. Never mind the charitable acts that she did, never mind the fact that she taught at different universities and stuff like that. The fact that she woke up every day, put a kinky wig on, darkened up her skin a little bit so that she can at least pass as, mixed or biracial. That is cultural appropriation right there, because she is trying to pass off as another race so that she can gain acceptance within that race. She can take off her wig, take off the makeup and all that stuff if she doesn't feel like getting pulled over by the police one day. The media praising white people for certain attributes that are allocated back to people of other minorities, but then demeaning those minorities for having those natural attributes, that is cultural appropriation. But if you see somebody who is, let's say, I'm just going to say German, for example, and they're wearing, let's say, like a charm bracelet or something of that sort that is traditionally Chinese, for example, for all we know, that could be cultural appreciation because of the fact that they may have an appreciation for the Chinese culture and they may be interested and intrigued by it. So if I see a white person rocking dreadlocks, I'm not going to care one bit. If he wants to rock dreadlocks, he can do him. Because first and foremost, I have no reason to judge since I myself have never rocked dreadlocks before. And secondly, dreadlocks is not part of my specific ethnic culture. If everyone knows that dreadlocks are part of the Rastafarian culture, which was technically originated in Ethiopia, then made its way to Jamaica, depending on how you want to look at it. And basically, there is a huge religious context with dreadlocks. I guarantee that a lot of people in the southern United States of America, particularly the black people, they're just rocking it for a fashion trend and they don't really know the meaning behind it. I doubt Lil Wayne, 2 Chainz, or Future knows the true meaning of dreadlocks. So if that's the case, and if we are persecuting white people and other people who are non-black who are rocking dreadlocks under that pretense, then why can't we hold those same black people who don't know that much about dreadlocks accountable? If you live in a diaspora, such as North America, for example, you're going to come across many different cultures, whether they be ethnic cultures, social cultures, etc., etc. And because of that, many cultures are going to intertwine with one another. So if you go into your local food court in your local mall, for example, you're going to see all types of different food, whether it be Mediterranean, Asian, whatever the case may be. You're going to come across that. So should we deem that as cultural appropriation? I don't think so. I think, once again, I'm going to bring this up, cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation are 2 different things. So let's bear that in mind, and let's bear in mind the fact that we are going to commingle with one another. And when we do, this is what's known as a global village or a melting pot of sorts. So I believe that people need to bear that in mind when it comes to things of this nature. So once again, some cool for thought for you. Based on that, let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter at DM_cool or cool_radio and let me know what you think. I'm sure there are a ton of points that I missed because I've gone through this issue so many times over and over again. And I hope, on the air at least, unless someone goads me into it, that this will be the last time that I mention this, because cultural appropriation is nothing but a scapegoat for people to latch on to whenever it best suits their narrative, in my opinion.